Na nine 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 na nine 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 na na nine nine na na nine na na nine na na nine nine na 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 nine na ya ya na nine na 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 nine nine na na nine na na nine ay 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 na na nine na na nine na 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 na. Shalom, shalom, wonderful friends. It's great to see you. Very excited to launch into this amazing topic today, actually, of our 50 transformative psychology studies and theories and Jewish perspectives on them. Today in session 8, we're going to look at Martin Seligman and positive psychology, which is really a game changer. So let's start with a poll question here. Happiness is primarily reached through physical pleasure, good relationships, positive mindsets, spiritual connection. What do you think happiness is primarily reached through among these options here? Okay, very interesting. Nobody said happiness is through physical pleasure, even though that, there's nothing wrong with pleasure. And no one said spiritual connection. 60% say positive mindsets and 40% say good relationships. Okay. So friends, here's what's really interesting about this topic today, which is that psychology in its earliest roots was about problems. I'm depressed. I'm anxious. I have trauma. And you go to your therapist, you're going to deal with your problems, right? But this is the opposite. This type of psychology is not dealt with as about addressing problems, but about actualization. It's about thriving as opposed to just dealing with problems. So for this session, we're going to look at the revolutionary theoretical work of Dr. Martin E.P. Seligman, a longtime faculty member at the University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Seligman is a distinguished scholar and widely regarded as one of the most influential psychologists of our time. Throughout his long career, he's made meaningful contributions to the field of psychology through his pioneering work on happiness. Seligman first gained prominence in the 1970s with his research on learned helplessness, a concept that emerged from his studies on how individuals develop a sense of powerlessness and resignation when exposed to uncontrollable situations. The work not only deepened our understanding of depression, but also opened new avenues for therapeutic approaches. Seligman's career took a transformative turn in the late 1990s when he shifted his focus to what is now known as positive psychology. So what's positive psychology? In basic terms, it's a psychological exploration that emphasizes the study and advancement of an individual's holistic well-being rather than merely focusing on one's distress and potential psychological trauma. And unlike traditional psychological approaches that often concentrate on diagnosing and treating mental health issues such as illness, trauma, and pain, positive psychology flips the narrative. Seligman's vision was to build a field that addresses human problems, but also seeks to understand and cultivate the factors that explore what makes life worth living and build the enabling conditions of a life worth living. So again, just to oversimplify, some psychology is about addressing your problems. This psychology is about helping people thrive or actualize themselves. This approach is rooted in the belief that psychology should be as concerned with strength as it is with weakness, interested in building the best things in life as in repairing the worst, while being focused on making the lives of normal people fulfilling. In this vein, Seligman, together with Professor Christopher Peterson, set out to create a positive alternative to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, known as the DSM. The DSM, the standard manual widely used to diagnose mental health issues, dispassionately categorizes and describes various mental health conditions. Seligman and Peterson instead believed psychology needed a framework that focused on what makes life go right. This vision led to the publication of Character, Strengths, and Virtues, a handbook and classification in 2004, a vital text that explores the qualities and strengths that allow people to thrive. So now, while I am a fan of therapy, I think therapy is a good thing. I think some people often make that the sole approach, right? I'm going to talk about my challenges and my problems and think that that's going to get me where I want to get. Well, what is also our psychological toolbook, not for addressing our concerns and anxieties and traumas, but what is our toolbook for building our strengths and building our virtues and developing our happiness from a positive standpoint? Foremost to positive psychology are 6 core virtues and related character strengths that Seligman and his colleagues identified as essential to leading a meaningful and fulfilling life. In developing this handbook, Seligman and Peterson cast a wide net, exploring the wisdom of different cultures throughout history. They examined teachings from ancient China and India, studied the philosophies of Greece and Rome, and considered the precepts and relative morals of modern Western societies. Their aim was to identify virtues that have been cherished across various civilizations and that contribute to a purpose-led life. From their research, they identified 6 key character strengths: wisdom and knowledge, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. Each of these virtues is broken down into specific traits. For instance, temperance includes qualities like forgiveness, humility, prudence, and self-control, traits that help individuals handle life's difficulties with grace and balance. So, friends, let's dive in to the 6. Courage. Courage empowers individuals to confront fear, pain, or adversity with resolve. It's an inner strength that encompasses not only physical bravery, but also moral courage. Courage involves honesty and integrity, the commitment to live authentically and speak the truth, even when uncomfortable, as well as a persistence that drives individuals to push forward despite obstacles, while vitality or zest brings energy and enthusiasm to life. Okay, that's courage. Number 2, wisdom and knowledge. Wisdom and knowledge represent the ability to make sound decisions, the ability to reflect, and an understanding of one's broader place in life. This virtue includes curiosity and creativity, qualities that drive novel thinking and a quest to understand the world on a deeper level. Open-mindedness allows for the consideration of diverse perspectives, while a love of learning fuels ongoing growth. So, friends, here I can make a pitch for VBM if you don't mind. These 2 first virtues are what VBM is about. We want a world, a Jewish world and a broader world that is more infused with wisdom and knowledge, where people are reflecting and thinking and growing in their understanding of life, and that channels to courage. How do you take wisdom and then live courageously to live those values in the world? Okay, but that's not it. Number 3, humanity. Humanity reflects the capacity for love, kindness, and social intelligence in our interactions. Menschlichkeit. Love refers to the genuine bonds we develop with others, while kindness involves acts of generosity and compassion. Social intelligence is the ability to navigate complex social situations. With empathy, understanding others' emotions and motivations. Humanity fosters strong connections and creates sensitive, caring communities. Okay, those are our first 3 traits. Let's go to slide 2. Justice. Justice is a commitment to ensuring everyone is respected and valued. It encompasses citizenship, which involves contributing to the community, and fairness, practice of making impartial decisions that recognizes everyone's dignity and rights. Leadership guides and inspires others with integrity and excellence, while individuals advocate for the marginalized and work towards a society where everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed. In this case, justice goes beyond the law, reflecting a moral responsibility to create a more equitable world. So, friends, what's the difference between kindness and justice? Kindness is about one-on-one, right? I am kind to the individual. Justice is about the third person. That is to say, When you move beyond the interpersonal of one-on-one to the third person, to the societal, you move from kindness to justice. Let's go to number 5, and temperance. Temperance is the practice of self-control and humility, helping individuals manage their impulses and seek balance with life. It includes forgiveness and mercy, letting go of grievances and responding to others with compassion. Humility recognizes one's limitations and appreciates others' strengths, while self-control regulates emotions and behaviors, ensuring thoughtful and measured actions. So if justice is about looking outwards, temperance is about looking inwards. If justice is about restraining power as it's exercised over others, temperance is about restraining our own power as we engage in our own humility and make space for others. Okay, lastly, transcendence. Transcendence is the pursuit of meaning and purpose beyond the self, right? This is where we move beyond the moral into the spiritual, you might say. With this is often connected to spirituality, gratitude, and appreciation of beauty. By the way, beauty is our psychological concept next week, I believe, the psychology of beauty. Spirituality offers a framework for understanding life's deeper questions. Not next week, next section. Spirituality offers a framework for understanding life's deeper questions and fosters inner peace. Gratitude involves recognizing and appreciating life's positive aspects, cultivating contentment. Appreciation of beauty finds joy and inspiration in nature, the arts, and simple moments. Humor brings lightness and perspective, while hope encourages belief in positive outcomes. So it's through transcendence, where individuals find their unique purpose, guiding them toward fulfillment and a deeper connection to the world. So for you, this might mean you're taking a trip to Japan or Portugal or Buenos Aires, and you want to experience the beauty of the world. It might mean you're going to an art museum. It might mean you're going to a hike out in nature. It might mean you're going to meditate, right? Some sense of getting beyond the self through travel, through art, through nature. So friends, it's important to note that Seligman and Peterson emphasize that these virtues are not ranked and that no single virtue is any more important than the others. Some want to say it's all about justice, or it's all about transcendence, or it's all about wisdom or courage, right? These are all crucial to the well-lived life. Rather, they are seen and should be seen as a continuum, with each virtue playing a vital role in building a well-rounded person, right? Think about not only the self, or parenting in this way. We don't just want wise children or courageous children. We want well-rounded people. Their goal was to provide a roadmap for the soul, allowing people who want to live happier lives, not just by avoiding mental illness. You don't live a happy life by just reducing your anxiety or decreasing depression, but by actively developing the positive aspects of their character and experiences. One more important point about Seligman is his thoughts on gratitude. In a 2018 interview with television personality Larry King, Seligman explored the power of gratitude when seeking a positive outlook on life. Here's what Seligman said. Gratitude is a very powerful thing. When we look at people's strengths and when we correlate different strengths with happiness, gratitude, kindness, prudence, self-control, the single strength that correlates the most with happiness is gratitude. Grateful people are naturally happy, right? Imagine when you go to a restaurant and you get a meal that we make our first experience not the imperfection of the bite. Ooh, it's a little too cold or a little too hot, a little too salty or needs more salt. But the first moment is like, oh my gosh, I'm alive and I have food and I can experience the joy of eating. I mean, you jump out of your chair in the restaurant. You jump out of your chair. And oh my God. I mean, people might think you're a little crazy, right? But you jump out of your chair and you're blown away by this experience of eating, right? As opposed to there's people that go to me like, oh, well, it was all right. Oh, the food was okay. It was a little, imagine if we thought of everything like that, that we are just kind of living with this sense of amazement. So anyways, that's according to Seligman, if we can somehow figure out how to do this, to take a grateful approach as opposed to just a critical approach, right? Look for all the blessings, counting them, seeing the good everywhere, as opposed to just immediately zooming in on the problem. We can live happier lives. And that's hard for some of us because if we're a doctor, we're looking for the problem. If we're a lawyer, we're looking for the problem, right? We're hardwired for a good reason to be smart and think critically. But how can we also live with this sense of constantly being focused on that gratitude? So, friends, another way to conceptualize positive psychology is the concept of flow. Flow, developed by psychologist, I'm not going to pronounce his name because I will botch it, but his name will appear, is a state of mental acuity where individuals become fully immersed in an activity, feeling focused and deeply engaged. The state of flow is marked by losing track of time, a sense of control and enjoyment. The ability to achieve flow involves balancing challenge and skill, setting clear goals, and receiving immediate feedback. In the book Optimal Experience, Psychological Studies in Flow of Consciousness, this fellow, and here you'll see his name. By the way, he just passed away maybe a year or two ago, but he's famous as the thinker of flow. He writes, flow occurs in an existential middle ground. We experience it when a balance is achieved between abilities and responsibilities, when the skills we possess are roughly commensurate with the challenges we face, when our talents are neither underused or overtaxed. Flow emerges in circumstances that are perceived as both problematic and soluble. So, friends, the reason I love playing basketball, the reason I love snow skiing, the reason I love swimming, is not because there's something intrinsic to the experience of seeing a ball go through a basket or the coldness of snow. It's because of the flow experience. I forget my worries and I am immersed in an activity, right? And what he wants to argue here is that part of this happy life will be finding more flow experiences, things where we are so immersed in the joy of an activity, baking muffins or painting art or meditating or skiing or fill in the blank or prayer. We're so immersed in this activity that we are out of the concerns of the mind. We've transcended it and we are immersed in this activity. So the state of flow transcends normal consciousness, allowing people to move beyond anxiety or self-reflection. A classic example is skiing, where focus is fully on the task, promoting creativity, well-being, and purpose. Now, I want to encourage people who now have a bad back, or whose knees are not what their knees once were, or for some reason cannot do some of the sports that used to give them flow, to find new forms of flow, because there are so many, and I think Jewish learning is one of them, where we can immerse into a flow state, beyond our daily tasks. Flow also contributes to a social dialogue about one's non-material success by connecting essential concepts such as community, spirituality, and relationships, which are central tenets in positive psychology. Rather than simply fixing problems, the goal of flow is to help individuals thrive by fostering deeper meaning, happiness, and achievement through proactive self-help and development. A salient aspect of this perspective is that internal contentment is not necessarily linked to external achievements like wealth, career advancement, or social status. Rather, pursuit of happiness is increasingly understood as rooted in subjective internal states, such as feeling connected to others, experiencing joy in the present moment, or finding purpose in life. When I think about how unhappy I was as a teenager, it was primarily because, like most teenagers, I was obsessed with what people thought of me. I was obsessed with what people thought I was wearing, if I was good enough at sports, if my grades were good enough, if I was good enough, right? And that was like a really bad way to live life. And unfortunately, some people don't grow beyond that teenage self, where everywhere they go, they're constantly thinking about social status and perception. Thankfully, I've made many leaps beyond that. And knowing the people in the room, I know none of you are in that place. But that is a big part of this flow state, that not just in skiing, but in the way we live our daily life, we've moved out of a state of boredom where I'm just constantly looking for entertainment and out of the state of anxiety where I'm on high alert. We're in that zone. Yes, there's challenges, but the challenges are fun. It's thinking, it's growing, it's learning, it's new opportunities to energize ourselves around growth and connection. So from flow is the notion of miswanting. Miswanting, a theory developed by Harvard professor Daniel Gilbert, suggests that people often pursue goals or activities they believe will bring them happiness, but which fail to increase life satisfaction. Let's say, for example, someone already has $2 million in the bank, but they feel they really want five, right? I'm not critiquing that. And so they spend all of their time getting from 2 to 5, thinking that will give them life satisfaction, right? I will be happy when don't have 2 million, but I have 5 million, right? Then I will really be there. Indeed, miswanting is the psychological tendency to pursue desires that fail to bring lasting happiness or contentment. People often believe that acquiring certain material possessions, reaching societal milestones, or attaining status will result in long-term satisfaction. But the reality often falls short. The gap between expectation and reality can be explained by various factors. Social comparison, for example, leads individuals to pursue what others deem valuable, while hedonic adaptation causes people to quickly lose the excitement or joy they initially felt after achieving or acquiring something. Hedonic adaptation means one is constantly pursuing pleasures, right? And whether it's a social recognition or a new material possession, like, oh, if I get this new BMW, then I'll really have what I want, right? Or if I get this recognition, then I'll really be happy. According to Gilbert, people are poor judges of what actually makes them happy, frequently engaging in pursuits that provide momentary pleasure, but do not lead to sustained meaning. For instance, while many people believe that career success or comfort with material items will bring them happiness, they may find that these achievements do not deliver the sense of purpose or connection they truly seek. Alternatively, it's a meaningful life that is more likely found through relationships, community, and personal growth, elements that nurture both the individual and their broader sense of emotional stability. Okay, friends, now I'm going to pivot to the Jewish side. But once again, just to summarize what I think I'm saying here is that one aspect of psychology we're exploring, and the dominant side, is what are my problems? How do I solve my problems? How do I get into my psyche to solve those problems? This positive psychology is not addressing the problems, but building off the positive, right? It's building off the strengths, and it is cultivating the virtues so that we want the right things. We want things that actually will make us happy so that the happiness will then be channeled towards a well-lived life where we can pay it forward. So in Jewish tradition, there's a deep connection between happiness, simcha, and the notion of sham moach, where your thoughts are. The idea that thoughts contribute to one's physical well-being reveals the profound role of mindset in cultivating joy. Many of you selected the choice early on that happiness is a mindset. This Jewish thought teaches that true happiness is often rooted in how we think and where we direct our focus. It suggests that shifting our attention towards meaningful aspects of life, such as chesed, kindness, hakarat hatov, gratitude, and teshuva, repentance, right? Improving myself, can significantly enhance the welfare of our daily lives. Happiness then becomes a conscious choice shaped by one's mental state and outlook. Judaism inherently values the concept of living with joy and happiness. More than finding satiation in material wealth or standing, there's a dignity that comes with finding joy in one's life, circumstance, and the current moment. As it famously says in Pirkei Avot, Ezehu Ashir Hasameach Bechelko. Who is the wealthy person? One who is happy with what they have. Furthermore, various practices encourage a joyful framework to life through religious observance and opportunities to seek spiritual renewal. That's another pathway. For instance, the Torah mitzvah to celebrate and rejoice during festivals like Sukkot, and to approach daily mitzvot, however we understand mitzvot, with a sense of happiness and constructive self-realization, a purpose-driven life where I have a mission in the day. My mission is not to just enjoy myself, but I'm trying to achieve something good in the world and in my life. And for Jews, we often call that mitzvot. Like, what am I called to do today? Furthermore, chesed encourages us to live with a focus on others in our community, fostering deep connections that bring a sense of accomplishment. When our thoughts are centered on acts of kindness, we move beyond self-centeredness and engage in a broader, more meaningful purpose. This aligns with the idea that simcha comes not just from personal achievements, but from the impact we have on others, reinforcing a happiness that is communal and deeply connected to sham moach, where you place your mind. Similarly, slicha and teshuvah represent a powerful shift in focus towards emotional and spiritual healing. By engaging in forgiveness, we let go of resentment and free ourselves from negativity, which allows room for joy to flourish, right? Letting go of that heavy weight of resentment. Teshuvah, the process of returning to one's higher purpose, further connects happiness to a mental reorientation. By aligning thoughts and actions with one's spiritual goals, individuals can experience a deeper, more sustained form of happiness. These practices remind us that where we place our thoughts profoundly impacts our capacity for simcha, urging a focus on growth, community, and personal purpose. As can be discerned, joy and happiness hold a significant place in Jewish thought, particularly through the teachings of Torah and the later 18th century innovations of Hasidic thought. While certain schools of Jewish practice often emphasize just law and ritual, sometimes leading to a more sober and somber manner, Hasidism redefined this paradigm by infusing spirituality with joy. To counteract some of their more solemn Jewish expressions of the era, Hasidism highlighted joy as an essential part of religious experience, encouraging a vibrant connection to the spiritual self. This movement sought to counterbalance the seriousness of Jewish practice with the belief that joy is foundational to a meaningful spiritual life, right? Many of you may have grown up with parents that taught you that Judaism was cold and serious and strict, right? As opposed to just a celebration of life. Hasidism's focus on simcha is deeply intertwined with its teachings on faith and hope and optimism. According to Hasidic thought, maintaining a positive outlook on the future is essential for spiritual growth and intellectual tranquility. The optimistic perspective encourages believers to see beyond immediate difficulties and to trust in a broader providence. As Rabbi Nachman writes, it's a great mitzvah to be happy always and to strengthen oneself, to push away the sadness and the black bitterness with all of one's might. Such an idea underscores that joy is not only a reaction to favorable circumstances, but also a proactive choice rooted in faith and hope. Moreover, part of living with simcha involves being fully present and engaged in the moment. This means deriving joy from the act of performing mitzvot, fulfilling one's purpose, and experiencing a sense of accomplishment and connection. The joy found in these moments is not just about personal satisfaction, but also about contributing to a larger sense of meaning and purpose within the framework of Jewish life. In the context of this thought and practice, there are both objective and subjective dimensions to achieving simcha. On the objective level, Our tradition prescribes certain actions and practices that are intended to cultivate joy. These include engaging in mitzvot, celebrating holidays, participating in communal activities, and learning that promote this type of fulfillment. Nevertheless, there's a subjective realm as well, which involves the internal work of aligning the mind and heart with these broader principles. This subjective outlook emphasizes personal attitudes and emotional states, focusing on how individuals relate to the very experiences and thoughts that come our way. Instead of merely combating negativity or toxic thoughts, this perspective encourages building on positive elements and nurturing an optimistic mindset. In the ethical spheres of Musar, various schools offer distinct theories on personal growth and self-improvement, each rooted in a unique philosophy of human nature. The Navardic school, known for its austere stance, begins with recognizing the fundamental loneliness and insignificance of human existence. This perspective emphasizes that human beings are inherently flawed, weak, and vulnerable. It stresses acknowledging these limitations, which evoke feelings of existential isolation, but also humility. According to this Navardic philosophy, true personal growth starts once individuals internalize their nothingness before the divine's and infinite greatness. From this perspective, students are encouraged to confront their deficiencies with relentless determination. The Navardic school also views personal weakness as an enemy to be attacked and conquered through self-criticism and rigorous discipline designed to break down the ego and control personal desires. The goal is to address imperfections with honesty and perseverance, believing that overcoming these flaws leads to spiritual advancement. This Navardic ideology, which we're going to contrast in a moment, involves introspection, where individuals examine their actions, thoughts, and behaviors to identify negative traits such as arrogance and anger and envy and selfishness. Once identified, individuals work to overcome these flaws through rigorous self-discipline, including practices like fasting, meditating, or journaling to track this progress. Ethical reflection is crucial as individuals must continually assess their decisions and actions to align with Torah teachings. This Musar tactic is akin to spiritual warfare, with the battle waged internally against darker impulses. Directly confronting weaknesses purifies character and accelerates moral and spiritual growth. Though demanding and requiring consistent dedication, this perspective aims to transform the individual by diminishing negative traits and fostering alignment with divine will. The process focuses on active self-improvement and reshaping one's behavior, allowing individuals to grow in their spiritual resolve. Now, in contrast to all of that, the Slobodka school emphasizes building upon existing virtues rather than solely confronting vices. The Slobodka method encourages individuals to recognize and nurture their innate talents and abilities. The Slobodka method encourages individuals to recognize and nurture their innate talents and abilities as gifts towards achieving greatness. Both the Navardic and Slobodka perspectives highlight the inherent greatness and potential within each person, acknowledging that individuals possess intrinsic worth, not despite their flaws, but because of their divine spark. This view asserts that individuals are defined not by their weaknesses, but by their capacity for tremendous moral and spiritual achievements. In this Slobodka framework, personal growth is seen as less about tearing oneself down by focusing on deficiencies and more about building oneself up by enhancing the positive qualities that reflect one's God-given potential. Traits such as gratefulness, composure, and wisdom are viewed as powerful tools, which, when developed, can guide individuals towards fulfilling their life's purpose. The constructive technique fosters a sense of hope and dignity, suggesting that by continuously striving to develop personal strengths, individuals can attain excellence and realize their highest potential. Rather than focusing solely on overcoming flaws, these approaches emphasize the importance of cultivating kindness, patience, modesty, compassion, qualities that, when nurtured, blossom into powerful forces for good. By redirecting energy towards developing virtues that align with ethical and spiritual ideals, negative traits often recede naturally. For example, a person who works on increasing their compassion and empathy may notice a decline in anger or impatience without having to confront those tendencies directly. Such positive reinforcement offers a gentler path to self-improvement, one that aligns with the Torah's broader vision of bringing light into the world through acts of righteousness and kindness, allowing individuals to rise to their highest selves through virtue and purposeful action. Friends, to conclude, as we can see, Seligman's positive psychology encourages building on strengths rather than merely fixing weaknesses, similar to how Slobodka teaches the greatness of the individual. Seligman argues finding one's true happiness comes from fostering qualities like gratitude and wisdom and kindness, parallels to Musar's focus on compassion, self-control, and spiritual growth. These perspectives foregrounds the importance of focusing on positive traits, which consequently can lead to perpetual personal growth. As you can see on the slide here, positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, achievement. All in all, these teachings emphasize that happiness is deeply rooted in mindset and purpose, not only external success. By directing our thoughts towards kindness, gratitude, forgiveness, and spiritual growth, we build a life of connection and meaning. Ultimately, our tradition informs a positive outlook on life, encouraging us to focus on inner transformation as the answer to achieving true happiness and fulfillment. Okay, my dear friends, I'm now going to turn it over to you for your thoughts and questions and engagement with positive psychology. Yes, Steve Shobin.
Victory is ours.
Victory is ours.
I think the saddest part of today's presentation is when you said, my friends, to conclude, because this was one of the most spectacular presentations. It hit me to my core. It made me feel so good. It was almost like a religious mental massage. And I can't thank you enough. I have much more to say, but I'll let others pick it up from there. Thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you, Steve. And that gratitude should not go to me, but should go to Martin Seligman. And you can send him an email. His name is probably Moshe or something because of his Martin. He's a Jewish guy. I don't know. I don't know how he identifies, but a lot of these psychologists, of course, were tapping into this deeper Jewish psychological side. And I do think that this is just such a great insight as we look towards the life of the mind, because we have often been taught that the life of the mind is this dark side as opposed to this very bright side. Yes, Cheryl. Thank you, Steve. Hi, Cheryl.
I'm reading a book right now. This struck me deeply because of what you said about joy. And you said something about joy. If you're what I think is joy, you said, is a proactive choice. But I think you have to be psychologically healthy in order to be able to make that choice. So the book I'm reading right now has a lot to do with the Vietnam War veterans and all that they experienced upon return. You know, some of them were POWs, some of them were just, you know, the one that I'm reading right now happens to be a nurse, you know, and that's a whole other series of situations. But they did not come back psychologically healthy and were unable to, as much as they thought they would like to be fine, they could not make that choice. So that's what struck me about you're saying, you know, yes, it's all well and good if you have the ability to do that.
Okay, Cheryl, I'm so glad you said that. Thank you so much, because that offers me the opportunity to provide an important corrective, which is that I hope what is not heard today is that I think that this is the sole pathway, right? That someone doesn't need to be treated for PTSD or potentially medicated or need some therapeutic intervention, right? That this is one of many tools in the toolbox that we can look towards. And there are many other things we need to think about as well. And I also hope nobody hears me saying is that happiness or joy is simply a choice. Every single person can equally choose just to be happy. It's going to require a lot more. We are all different with many different experiences. And yes, the person just coming back from war or who's mourning the loss of a child doesn't need to simply say, I choose to be happy today, right? We're much more complicated than that. But that this is one tool in addition to those. Yes, Cheryl, back to you.
Okay. I just wanted to say one more thing, and that is that since we're talking about psychology, that obviously the professionals can help guide a person from the depths of despair to, be able to do what you said, is be able to have the ability to make that choice. So I'm not dissing the practice of psychology or the methods or anything. I'm just saying that there are people who have the inability to make that choice and then need the help to get there.
Great. Yes, I love that. Thank you. So well said. Yes, Ken. Thank you, Cheryl. Hi, Ken.
I was just thinking, was going back to your description of the meal about what it meant to be grateful for food, and the difference between having that internal love of whatever it is you're doing and contrasting that in my mind to someone who simply says a grace before the meal but doesn't mean it. And how you get from one to the other, how you get from the rote repetition of doing something you think is showing the good side of yourself to actually being the good side of yourself. And I have no idea how to do that. And it's I don't know if Seligman explains how to get from the rote to the real, but that does seem to be something that flows through all of what you've described here, both in the psychological and in the religious descriptions that you gave.
So Ken, let me make sure I understand the really important thought correctly. That we can engage in sport or play or in work or in whatever we do in our life in a very rote manner. How do we actually get from that rote orientation towards that kind of deeper flow and immersion state? Is that right, Ken?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was pondering.
Yes. So I'm going to leave that question for the group, for folks to share some of their own wisdom on when you've been able to do that. How did you do that? Because, and to be sure, I'm sure we've all had peaks and valleys here, where there are times when everything is a little bit boring in life and everything is a little bit rote, and times where we've had these highs. And I imagine that's also changed with aging. That when I think about my peaks and valleys of my, my young adult life or teen life, every hour was a new existential crisis. I felt like as a teenager, it was like the worst moment of my life, the best moment of my life. I'm like so glad I'm outside of that state, right? But then through maturation, we get to a point where we're a little bit more, even keeled, a little more steady. How do we kind of make that transition? So I hope people will engage with that. And if I'm calling on you now, you don't need to engage with that. You can go wherever you want. But let's go to Mara. Hi, Mara.
I was actually going to answer that question.
Great, please do.
The answer for me is mindfulness. People love dining with me. I've had multiple friends say, I love eating with you. It's such an engaging experience because I love food. And I'm going to describe in detail my experience. And throughout the meal, I might continue to say how good it is, right? And so I just think whether it's, cutting bread or eating a meal or playing football, like it's mindfulness and really being present with what you're doing, for me, gets me over there.
I love that. That's actually funny. At first, I thought you said people love dying with me. And I thought, I was like, wow, that's really powerful you do, but love dining with you is even better. And because I'm not a cook, I and you appreciate all the food you get. When I cook, I should probably have you over, so that you'll tell me how good my stuff is, since nobody else will tell me that. But yes, I love what you're saying about the mindfulness. And if anyone here has never done a food meditation, I invite you to do that after our session. And here's how you can do that. Take a piece of fruit you like, and instead of chewing it and swallowing it all within 6-7 seconds, keep that little piece of fruit on your tongue for a minute and put all of your energy into the experience of sucking the sweetness out of that fruit and immersing yourself for a whole minute in that bite, an experience of eating that. An experience like that can be an immersion in this type of mindfulness that Mara's talking about here. And that can be true for lots of things. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I hope others will share other ideas on how we make part of this transition. So thank you for that beautiful point. And I am going to have to dine with you soon. Hi, Sarah.
I was also going to respond not only to the food, but to the flow. So I'm another one of those who just revels in the tastes and the experience of food. So, but what I recognize when you were describing it is that there is a part of me and a part of that flow, which is, wow, and if we added this to it, it would be even more amazing. So that critical element is not gone. It's just redirected to how can we make this an even more awesome experience? How can I shift this to create even more excitement and joy and flow? So that's one piece of it. Another piece is, how do I go from growth to flow? And a big piece of it is being less self-critical in the experience, letting myself just, as Mara was saying, be in that conscious presence. And for me, it's really hard because one of those places for me for flow is dancing. And particularly when it's a difficult thing like Argentine tango, and needing to stay really connected to the other human and trying to figure out where they want me to go and what they're looking for, it becomes, if I don't let go, then I'll lose the flow and joy of it and lose that deep connection with the other. So the flow for me is about staying connected to myself and often to the people that I'm with in the experience. What fascinated me and left me curious was the piece that you added about what poor judges we are of what will bring us happiness. And I'm not sure that I got an answer to how we become, other than through being conscious and letting go when we recognize that, no, this doesn't bring me happiness, this doesn't bring me joy, to getting to the place of maybe if I learn more, maybe if I stay with this process of learning, and the learning is often difficult and painful, and there's the whole book about plateaus and how difficult it is to love that plateau that we have to come to go further in the learning and growth experience that gets us closer to flow. So how do we get beyond the poor judgment of what brings us happiness?
Oh, I love that. I love that. And as always with your profound questions, I don't have an answer. I only have reflections. But I think that we are so hardwired to the popular. What movies do we go to see? The movies that have great reviews, What books do we read? The New York Times bestseller, right? We want to read and watch the things that are publicly acclaimed, the things that are well reviewed, the thing, as opposed to the ancient philosophical question of the greatest wisdom is the one who knows thyself, right? When I know myself on the deepest level, I don't ask which book or movie got good reviews. I say, what do I enjoy connecting with, right? I go to the thing that is true to me rather than what the public tells me is the good. Um, and so that is incredibly hard to know thyself and to know what experiences and what conditions in those experiences will set the stage for me to transcend the self beyond the self-aware. Because I think, as you're saying, in the flow, we go beyond the self-critical, that when I don't enjoy playing basketball, it's when I say to myself, am I playing well? Right? It's a big game. Am I doing it well enough? As soon as I'm asking the question, am I dancing well enough with my dance partner? I'm not in the flow of the dance. I'm in the critic of, am I doing it well enough? Right? As soon as I get beyond the question of, am I doing it right? Am I doing it well? Into, I'm just totally in it. I can only get there if it's true to the depths of who I am. And that is a really hard thing to find and to figure out. And I think that part of that also is getting beyond the instrumental. So when we light Hanukkah candles next week, one of the interesting things about Hanukkah candles is that there's an Isur Hana'ah, a prohibition of benefiting from the light of Hanukkah candles. It's the opposite of Shabbat candles. When you light Shabbat candles, the goal is peace in the home. You want to spread the light in the home. When you light Hanukkah candles, you're not supposed to read by that light, right? You're not supposed to use that light as the light that you, right? It's supposed to be of no value to you. Now, the point there is that it's not transactional. It's not instrumental. We experience the light as something beyond the self-gain. When I'm doing something for gain, I don't want to say it's an exploitative, but there's something instrumental exploitative when I'm only engaging something to gain something. I'm trying to get money. I'm trying to get, recognition, right? When I engage in something for its own sake, for the intrinsic inherent value in it, right? That fundamentally shifts what we're doing. And so I think here, the key word is kavanah. The kavanah in Hebrew means intentionality. Before I enter the dance or the eating or whatever I'm about to do, how do I enter with the intentionality that I'm not trying to get somewhere? I'm not trying to get something. I'm not trying to prove myself. I'm trying to immerse into this experience right now, right? For its own sake. So again, I have no answer to say. It was a great question here of how do we do that, but I think the question is something we should all sit with of how do I ultimately achieve that? So Sarah, thank you for that. Yes, hi Gary.
Good morning, everyone. Well, I don't have anything that profound to say, but I just want to go back to the food thing for a moment. You mentioned food, and so did Ken. I've always kind of had this motto: I eat to live, and I don't live to eat. And as we have gotten older, it's sorry, Mara, but it's the company I'm with, not necessarily the food. And so I am grateful that I have the food, but I try to be more grateful for the moment, even if it's just eating by myself or eating with my wife or with Shmuly or whoever becomes the vital part for me, and that's how I look at it. And the opposite is my wife, this dearly lovely wife, is a dietitian. So we hear all about the intricacies of what's in it and it tastes good and the blah 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 blah. So, but I find it interesting. We're sitting here. Other than Mara, I think we're all pretty in our senior years, and so as we have grown or through our ages, we bring a lot of baggage to the field, to our lives, And I think that those types of experiences, uh, uh, how can I put it? Give me a moment. It's an aging thing here. Those experiences affect how we look at things, and we're all listening here, and we're kind of like sages. I kind of think we all bring interesting things to the table, and as we continue to learn from our mistakes or life experiences that we had no control of, we've kind of throw out the things that we have no control over, which is most of life, and we continue to search out ways to improve our lives. That's why we're on this all these classes. It's the same group that's been with Shmuly for quite a while now, trying to look for knowledge and experiences that will help us move forward. So I mean, and I'm always looking for joy based upon a lot of experiences I have that I wish I had never experienced, but really have changed the way I foresee how I see life, and how I try to bring joy, not just to me, but joy to other people. And so I mean, that's my, I guess, my point. Did want to address Cheryl for a moment, because I work at the VA. Even though I'm a podiatrist and I treat feet and ankles, I see all these young men and older men that have been through war and have come back with long-term chronic mental health issues. And having lived through the Vietnam War, though I wasn't in the service, it really is, it really messes people up. War messes people up. And it's really brought a whole different light of what it is to serve in the military more than just 2 years. Many of these people have served the rest of their lives with the experiences that they've had.
Very nice, Gary. Just awesome. But just before we go to Matthew, and then conclude, my awakening around dining with people. When I was in grad school, I was eating one night with some other grad students, and actually, one of the people I would eat with regularly was a guy named Ben Shapiro. I don't know if you've ever heard of Ben Shapiro. He was one of the regular people I had dinner with in grad school in Boston, and I remember my orientation up to that point in my life was just eat a ton of food really fast. And I was eating, and I just had this huge plate of like beef, and I just ate so much so fast. And I looked up and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm not in conversation with people around me at all. I'm just like totally focused on this fast consuming of food so I can rush to my next thing. It was a big wake up moment for me of what it means to eat with people and what it means to, dine with people as well. So thank you for that and your other points around war and happiness. Matthew, you got our closing point here.
Yeah, short and sweet. You talked about joy and flow, and I think of the time you go to a live concert. Mm-hmm. And the performer is dogging it. It's the 48th day of a 50-day tour. And they're doing it from memory. And the famous quote from Joe DiMaggio about running out at infield hit. Someone said, why did you run it out? The answer was, someone here will only see me once. And they're going to say, oh, that DiMaggio didn't do his job. So you can do things by rote, but you have to remember them by rote. Other people will watch. You need to provide that level, that flow has to come through. And because that gives joy to yourself and to others. Thinking of going, we saw the Stones last year when they were in Phoenix. Boy, they put on a show. There was no joy. They were on stage for 2.5 hours. But they were in it. But can you imagine paying all that money and one that isn't doing the job? They're just going through it by rote. That's, I guess,
very nice.
The obligation to do your best at all times.
Beautiful. Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate that very much. So, friends, I'll miss you over the next 2 weeks due to some conflicts in our schedules. We won't meet the last 2 weeks of this year. We'll meet again in the first Tuesday of January. That is the January the 7th. But I wish everyone a beautiful Hanukkah and lots of positive psychology in your 2025.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you,
See you.
Rabbi.